Hello and welcome to 360 Gamercast, episode 182 for Tuesday, the 10th of October, 2023. I'm your host, Mark Webb, gamertag Pearson ID, Steam ID, Webby360G, and joining me today is...
It's a blast from the past. It's Graham, or GHAM OX14.
Oh. And everyone's favourite insect lover, Sensei Switch.
Fantastic.
See, Graham, before we get chatting, I always thought your gamer tag was Gamox14.
Yeah, I always pronounced it Gamox.
Well, the funny thing is my name is Graham, so people always used to call me GHAM, which is where the first half of it came from.
Ah. I'm still going to call you Gamox because that's what I've called you for years.
It's well, it works. It's sort of stuck now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Go with what you know, isn't it?
That's it. So Graham's been a member of the community for quite a long time now, and decided to actually pop onto the podcast and say hello, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. And as a bonus, I've been playing some games as well for a change.
No way. So that is pretty awesome. We don't have Nick this week because he's actually at work at the moment because he does shift work. Saddy face. Yep. But Graham's there, which is good.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I had to move myself momentarily then. So, Graham, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you've been listening? What's your favourite console?
I have lost count of how long I've been listening. I mean, you'll probably be able to tell me. It's got to be. It needs to be about 15 or 16 years, isn't it? Really?
Well, the podcast has been going for 15, yeah. So
yeah. 16, I mean, I've been listening. Yeah, pretty much right from the start. And when I started listening, I was a bit of a. Well, I mean, I was one of the generation who made the leap from the PS2. Yes. And I leapt over and I bought the Xbox 360 because on paper, for me, it was the better console at the time. Yep. And obviously there was the whole thing with the price and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I got very much into the Xbox 360 community. And I think the very first game I ever bought on the Xbox 360, and I think I've told this story before, was Fallout 3.
Great game.
That was in the days when I was not used to consoles being online, and I remember plugging my console in and launching the game, and being told that I couldn't play it because I needed to download a patch in order to launch it. So I had to go out and buy a cable, I think it was, in order to connect the console to the internet to download the updates in order to be able to play it.
Oh, was it like one of the Game of the Years that came with some DLC then, or something? And it wasn't.
I can't remember. I mean, it was one of the very early Xboxes, and I think it had like the 200 gigabyte hard drive or something. Someone's going to correct me on this, but it didn't have the Wi-Fi.
32 meg hard drive, I think, wasn't it? And then what was it? A 64? It might have been a 64 because I'm sure it went up to 120 for the Elite.
It was one of them which clipped on the top. I think it was.
Loads of different sizes, but a 20 gig, I would imagine.
Actually, you might be right.
I think you might be right. Yeah.
But what it was when I launched the console, I think it said it couldn't play the game because the firmware or the system software had to be updated in order to run the software, which it wouldn't do without being connected to the internet. And I just remember thinking, well, this isn't very next gen. What's all this about, But of course, but over time, I got online and I played a few games with members of the community, and there was a bit of Gears and there was a bit of Street Fighter, and I seem to remember we had a big session on I think it was Left 4 Dead or Left 4 Dead 2 with the guys. We had quite a fraught game. One was something random like a Thursday evening. I jumped on and I ended up getting pulled into this particular match, and it it went on for something like 3 or 3.5 hours, and it ended up with me and it ended up with me dead on the top of a roof and all the others fighting over who was going to go back and save me. And I think Mark very, very kindly leapt into the chat and just said, "Fuck him, he's dead. Let's go."
That sounds like
I'm
me.
like, well, I'm like, well, thanks very much then. Cheers. But no, and then the next sort of then the next generation came round, and for reasons in that I wanted to play the exclusives, I leapt over and I basically I bought a PS4. I sort of defected back the other way because for me I know the Sony had the games that I wanted to play more. They had the more sort of single player story driven games, things like, you know, I mean, they came along a little bit later. Yeah, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, you know, all those games. Yeah, so I made that leap, and I've just very recently purchased, I think it's second-hand, it's an Xbox Series S.
Yeah.
And I've just sort of picked that up for, I don't know, I picked it up for like 50 quid or something. Bought a decent controller. Nice. I've jumped in, got Game Pass, and I've just been sort of going through the old games which I just never got to play for that generation. I mean, eventually I'm looking at maybe going for a PS5 or a Series X. I don't know. Maybe both. Depends how the budget goes.
Yeah.
I'd leave the Series X though if you've got an S at the moment, to be honest, unless you really want like the 4K, etc. I mean, but if you haven't got the TV for it, it doesn't particularly make much sense.
The only thing which I'm finding with the S is that it's filling up the storage very, very quickly. It's not got a very big hard drive.
No, I had to buy an expansion for my one.
Yeah, and I realise they all pretty much support it out of the box now with the software that is available for them. But I'm at the stage where I'm like, well, do I buy a big expansion drive, or do I just, you know, bite the bullet and get a slightly better console? Or, you know, it's I'm sort of at a bit of a crossroads really. But like you say, Game Pass and the Xbox it's all right if I want to just jump on and play something for an hour on an evening, then it's great. I've got pretty good internet speed here. I'm getting reasonable download, so jump on, just have a little bit of a play, just kind of pick and choose through the Game Pass catalogue, and there's quite a lot of variety on there, really.
Yeah, and you know, I'm quite fortunate. I've got the best of both worlds with an X and an S, so I can give some good comparisons on some of the games. And I have to say, you know, people might slag it off, but I think it's actually a decent little console. Like, I've got mine hooked up to a 1080p monitor.
Yeah.
And I think the games look fine on it. I mean, obviously, you're not getting all the extra stuff like you do with the X, like on Forza. You don't get the options for the ray tracing and stuff like that. But like games like that, they still look and run well on it, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. It does the job, and also with a lot of the games that you play on Game Pass, it does kind of suggest whether it thinks you should download it or whether you just kind of do like the remote play, because the remote play is pretty decent actually. I mean, the only thing I find with some of the games, because the drive is sort of mechanical, I think sometimes it just sort of takes a while to load, which I think is where the Series X has kind of got a little bit of a head start. Do you know what I mean?
I think
I thought it was. Is it not an SSD then, or?
Yeah, it is an SSD. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think they load fine, mate. To be honest,
maybe this one's just a bit old and clapped out. I don't know, but you know, it does the job. It's reasonable.
It's a Series S and not an S.
It might even be an S rather than a Series S, actually, thinking about it.
You got a 1S.
Yeah, because I did think if you paid like a 50 odd quid for it, that is pretty good for a Series S. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, no, that would make sense then, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it and I'm like, oh, 50 quid, you know, I'll have it. You know, even if it is the base model, I'd pretty much take it just because it'll probably play the stuff that I'm interested in playing. And I sort of, I don't know, I tend to gravitate to the slightly smaller and the more indie stuff, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But, you know, it does the job. It's reasonable.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
awesome, awesome. Cool. All right. Well, it's good to have you on anyway, mate. I just want to bore everyone to death talking about Forza.
Go for it. I want to hear about this. I want to hear what it's like.
All right. Well, I've got positives and negatives. I'm going to go through the negatives first, just to get them out of the way.
Right.
So, what game? So, I remember a few years ago, right, there was a game, it might have been The Division or something, where people complained like fuck that it had a downgrade. I'm pretty sure it was The Division, wasn't it, Darren? Or might have been something else. I can't remember.
The Division, and it's been a few things. The Division, Spider-Man,
yeah.
Like Puddlegate.
So remember there was a massive outroar that there was a downgrade in gameplay to what was shown. I seriously don't know why there isn't an uproar when it comes to Forza, because
I've seen a few videos.
Yeah. I mean, right. So I've been playing this on my Series S. I've played it on my Series X, and I've played it on my PC. Right, and my PC is pretty decent. It's not the best, but it's fucking good, right? So, talk about PC first. The performance on PC is shockingly bad, right? And you think my graphics card is double the power of a Series X at least, right? So I've got 3080, an i7 12700K, and it is on an NVMe SSD. That is one of the ones that are rated to put in your PS5. So it's a very quick drive. Got 32 gig of RAM.
Big ones,
yeah. So I've got a good PC, right? It runs like arse. I struggled to get a solid 60 frames per second on the PC, which is really disappointing. But even putting the graphics all the way up with the ultra and the ray tracing and all that, it looks okay. But like I went back and watched some of the gameplay trailers that they put up about a year or so ago.
Right.
And it looks nothing like the gameplay trailers they showed us about a year ago with all the amazing reflections and all that. I mean, the reflections look decent, don't get me wrong, but looks nowhere near as good as what they showed us. So I'm very disappointed in that department, in the graphics. So graphically on the Series S, it looks good for the Series S, and on the Xbox Series X, it looks good. But in my humble opinion, and this is just my opinion, right? I really don't think the cars look I don't think they look any better than Gran Turismo 7. I really don't. And that's not taking anything away from Gran Turismo, because Gran Turismo looks amazing. Yeah, it really does. But it did get me wondering, because obviously Gran Turismo is a cross-gen game. It was on the PS4 as well as the PS5. This is supposedly built from the ground up, and it looks like that. I was expecting a lot more, and that's purely on what I had seen in gameplay trailers. So I'm really disappointed. I'm really disappointed with the performance on PC, and it's not the first time a Forza has done this. I had the similar issues with Horizon.
Was it with Horizon? Yeah.
Yeah. And it just shocks me, because this is a Microsoft game, right? The game's come out on Xbox and PC, and it runs like smoothness. It runs really well on both the Xboxes, the Series S and the Series X. But on PC, the performance just isn't there. And, I've looked on Reddit pages and stuff like that with people with 4090s, like much better PCs than me, and they're saying exactly the same thing. So it's just a little bit disappointing that they've released another game that they haven't ported over very well to PC.
Would that have actually come down? Because I would have thought it'd probably be better with certain games for them to make it for the consoles and then maybe bring it over to the PC like a little while later.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind that, because I own the consoles anyway, so I wouldn't give a shit.
Because then it's finally tuned for obviously that system. Because obviously PC owners are, I would say, the easiest to piss off when it comes to sort of obviously performance and such. And for like what you said, This is a studio that has worked with obviously Microsoft, which is like heavily based in the PC architecture and stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not particularly a great look. But then again, you can say that with like there's been some shocking ports of like Sony games onto the PC as well, isn't there? Like Last of Us, etc.
But then, I mean, that pisses people off, but not as much as Microsoft own games, because obviously Microsoft and PCs go together like peanut butter jelly, right? So, that for me is disappointing. So graphically, this is me looking at it, and I'm playing it as I talk right now. I personally don't think it looks any better than Gran Turismo 7. I really don't. No. And that is, and I say that is just slightly disappointing just because I was expecting a lot better. However, I will say on the PC, you can up the ray tracing and everything, like max out all that stuff, and the reflections. Like I'll put some screenshots in the Discord in our racing channel, and that, at times it can look amazing. It's really odd because like sometimes I'm playing it on PC and I can get it at solid 60 sometimes, and I'm thinking, this looks great, and then about half an hour later I'm playing on a different track and I'm like, oh, this looks fucking shit. What the fuck's going on? It's definitely got some issues. Definitely.
Do you think it's polish, or is it?
I just don't.
They've rushed it out a bit. Maybe.
I think it could have done with a little bit more time. To be honest, I really do. As I say, I mean, it looks good. I'm not going to say it looks shit because that's like it looks good, but not up to the expectations of what I was expecting.
Racing games on the 360 and stuff still looked good, in my opinion.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely. Absolutely. The other negative, and this is just purely for me, because I play a lot of racing games on PC and on the PlayStation. I have a racing wheel. Now, it's not a Fanatec or anything fancy like that. It's a Logitech, right? A G923, which is still a decent wheel, right? And I play a lot of iRacing with it, and GT7, and
is that one force feedback at all?
Oh yeah, has really good force feedback.
It's the proper kit, is it?
Yeah. With Gran Turismo and iRacing and games like Assetto Corsa and stuff like that, it feels really good. I've spent about 3 or 4 hours trying to dial it in on Forza, and it just feels shit. So that's just another disappointment for me, just because I can't really use a wheel for it. So, I've sucked it up, and I've just, and I thought to myself, you know what? At the end of the day, it's fine. I'll just purely use Forza as a console game now. I'll just sit on the sofa and just enjoy it with the controller, because the handling with the controller is awesome. Like, you get all the feedback in the triggers, because the triggers have their own little rumbles as well and all that. Like, the handling with the controller is really good. So I'm not going to take that away. Just with the wheel, it just feels very flat. That, in my opinion, right? So I know better wheels like Fanatec's and stuff. I've seen videos where people have dialed them in and they've been meant to be pretty good with it. But as I say, with mine, I can't get it to feel as good as the other racing games that I've played. The other negative, graphically, and I found this on Reddit and it's been in the news sites a little bit, is because they've said that they've built it from the ground up. Well, they haven't, because people have found old assets from older Forza games in this. So most notably, in your car selection screen, they're using old assets for the cars from old Forza games. Not even the last one, but going back like 2 or 3 games, apparently.
I still remember when one of the Gran Turismos back in the day, didn't it use like old car models for certain makes of car or older cars, and then like the newer ones were actually.
I think that might have been GT6. I think it was on the PS3.
Right.
Some of the models were mixed. Some were mixed, and some of them didn't have like modelled interiors, and some did, and people were up in arms about it. And they're like, the car nuts were out, and they're like, why haven't you done them all? And apparently they just sort of said they ran out of time or something.
See, the thing that and I know it sounds like I'm bitching a lot. I will get to the positives in a bit. I mean, also to the end, but racing games like Forza and Gran Turismo are usually the games that showcase the power of a console. You know, they're gorgeous.
They're the easiest games to make look lovely, aren't they?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, and you know, it does look good on the Series X. Don't get me wrong, but I personally think it could look a lot better. I really do. Like, they've gone to some weird design choices. So, like, when you're in the game, like, and it's on a sunny day, like all the terrain, shall we say, like all the foliage and everything else, it just looks lifeless. There's no colour to it. It's just grey and just looks flat, you know? It's just really odd. You know, but then when you're playing it in the rain or in a thunderstorm or something, it looks fucking amazing. Like, the weather effects with the rain, they look stunning. Absolutely stunning. So there is definitely a mishmash there. It's just odd. Like, graphically, it's just, I think it's just a little bit all over the place. You know, with different cars look better than others, like some tracks look better than others. At different times of day, the game looks better than others. It's just not consistent. I'm hoping that they improve it, because I'm getting the vibe that this game is a live service type game, because obviously they haven't numbered it.
Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
And there is, you know, at launch, there is a distinct lack of tracks. There isn't many. I can't count them off the top of my head right now because I can't remember. But there isn't a lot. But they're going to be bringing out a track a month at the minute. So most notably at the minute, it's missing my favourite track, which is the Nordschleife, Nürburgring.
Right out, that's kind of big.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people say, it's shit, but for a lot of gamers, it's their favourite racetrack, and it is my favourite racetrack.
It's also a test track as well, isn't it, really? It's like where you can take a car out and test it.
Yeah, well, they've got the Nürburgring F1 track, but not the actual Nordschleife. Yeah, so, again, that's just another a mission. Also, on PC, I've had loads of graphical glitches where I put some pictures in. I was driving around just doing a test in a car, and the road just disappeared, and it wouldn't come back. There was no road. I was just driving on nothing. Yeah, I put some pictures in the Discord if you want to have a look. So I had to restart the game. So there's definitely a lot of issues with it. On Xbox, I've had it crash to the dashboard on me about 4 times. Every single time it's whilst looking through my car collection, it just all of a sudden just crashes the dashboard. So there's a little bug there. I've had it. So the multiplayer, I was playing with Frosty a couple of nights ago, and 3 times we tried to get into a game together, and it just locked up just trying to select our cars, and we had to restart our Xboxes 3 times before it would work. So
wow.
Yeah, I know I'm not painting it in a positive light, but there are positives, right? So
it's on Game Pass, right? Isn't it?
It is on Game Pass. It's actually out tomorrow properly. I bought the early access, so But I will say the game is fun. So just going back to the graphics again, and I've been slagging off the graphics, but if you're on console, they still look decent. Yeah. Just don't expect it to look as good as what you've seen in the trailers. So, yeah, if you're not a graphics snob, you'll enjoy it. The handling on the controller is really, really good. Yeah, that's fantastic. The campaign is pretty decent. It's basically there's a selection of different race classes, and then you go through a load, and then it just puts you in different cars. That's quite enjoyable, and they're going to add more and more as time goes on, just to keep you going back to the kind of career single player mode, which is pretty cool. Now so the leveling system might put some people off. I'm still on the fence about it. So basically there's two things in the game, right? So you earn money, and that's purely to buy the cars. That is literally all your money's used for. But as you drive a car, the more you drive it and the more you do perfect corners and stuff like that, you're ranking up that car, right? And then the higher level you are in the car, it unlocks more parts for that car, right? And then you can put them on, but you get a limit with. So basically, you earn your levels, but each level unlocks more parts, but it unlocks this other credit system called CP, and basically that's used to like just put upgrades on your car to make it a higher level, right?
Right.
So I'm on the fence about this because a lot of the cool stuff on the cars, like body kits and shit like that, you have to rank your car up to about level 40 to unlock those cool things, and it takes quite a while to get up that high. I've played the game. Well, I looked on my Xbox earlier. I've played it for over 22 hours already, and I've only got one car at level 50, and the rest of them are around in there. And the other ones I've used are in their mid 20s. So it does take quite a while to level up your cars. Now, I've played quite a bit of the single player, and I've been enjoying it, but I've been playing quite a lot of the multiplayer as well. Now, the multiplayer is quite a lot different to what you're used to, and I was a little bit shocked, to be honest, right? So, usually in these sort of games, there's a lobby system. So, like myself, I'd create a lobby, make the rules, cars, tracks, or whatever. You can't do that. You can only do it in a private match. So that's only if it's you and your mates, right? You can't just search for open lobbies, which is a little bit of a downer, in my opinion, right? Yeah. So the only multiplayer that you can do is basically this other mode where there's different classes of races. There's so at the minute there's 3 different classes. There's like touring cars, GT4 cars, and I can't remember the other one. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head at the minute. And they all, so basically it's like iRacing. So it's basically the next race is starting in say 10 minutes, right? So you jump in, and it'll have a little timer in the corner saying the race is starting in 10 minutes. You got 10 minutes of practice. So you spend the 10 minutes doing practice laps, but within that you need to press start and go into qualifying and do your qualifying laps as well. You have to do 3 of those, right? So you qualify like a normal qualifying, right? And then the race starts. But the positive about it is most of the races I've been in have been pretty clean, because like iRacing, it has a safety system and a ranking system, right? So if you crash into people, you lose your safety rating, and you have a skill rating as well. So the better you do, obviously your skill goes up, and then it matches you with similar safety and performance ratings. So basically all the dickheads who crash into each other all the time are going to end up getting matched together. So I actually quite like it because, I think it's a really cool way of having multiplayer, and it does encourage clean racing because, as I say,
stop you having like idiots coming and just ruin your race.
Yeah. So that I think is a big positive, because it's a mode that I've really been wanting, because Gran Turismo has something similar, but it has 3 different races which last a whole week, which, if you just want to do a different track or different cars, like this way that Forza's done it is a lot better, because it will like tell you which tracks and which cars are at which time in like a line. So then you can just be like, oh yeah, I'll jump straight into the next one, and it'll be a completely different track. It might be the same cars because the same cars are on the same things, but then you can just jump into a different category if you wanted, So that's quite positive. I'm hoping though that they do add a public lobby system at some point, purely because I think, if we was going to set up a game a night and we don't, and so we only get say 4 or 5 people into a private game, sometimes you want just randoms to join just to fill up the spaces. Which you can't get, and you can't even add AI drivers either. So, that'd be a bit boring. However, positively, the other mode I've just been talking about, which you can jump into the races at certain times, you can create a lobby with your mates and then jump into those ones. So you can all race together on those ones, which is quite cool because that's something that iRacing and Gran Turismo doesn't allow you to do. Yeah. So you can still play together with other randoms and clean races doing that. It's just if you fancy driving a particular car, you're fucked basically, because obviously they give you the car class and they say, oh, these are the eligible cars, and it gives you a list of like 8 cars or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is fun. It is really fun. I've played quite a lot of the multiplayer with Darkest Frost from our community and Angelos as well. And we've had a blast. So, definitely is positives about it. I personally think the game is fun. I really do. And obviously it's coming to Game Pass, so you've got nothing to lose, right? So that's another positive. It's just I still can't hide my disappointment from all the other things I mentioned earlier on. So take from that what you will. But I think, I'm someone who really loves my racing games. I play a lot of them, yeah? So I'm going to be picky. However, the normal casual gamer will pick up Forza and just enjoy it, I think, Like Gavlar, I was playing with him, I was in party chat with him today, and we had a few games, and he was just saying to me, yeah, I'm a casual racer, and I just think it's fun. And I was like, yeah, great, that's perfect, So, yeah.
It sounds a bit similar. I'm getting a very, very similar vibe to when Gran Turismo came out on the PS4. When it launched, what was there was sort of pretty good, but it was lacking a lot of things. And I think I waited for about a year because they did roll out a lot of updates. They rolled out a lot of tracks.
Yeah.
They rolled out a lot of cars. They rolled out a lot of packs. And it's one of those where on day one, it was a bit of a difficult sell.
Yeah.
If you waited for a year or if you waited for 18 months, it sort of became a bit of a better value proposition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was the one that was after Prototype, wasn't it? Which was on the PS3.
It was, yeah. And it was the one which was entirely online all the time, live service up the wazoo, everything. And when it came out, it was pretty bare bones. And you just got the feeling like they wanted to get it out and get it in people's hands so they could start building the content up to fill it up. And maybe, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, you'll have all the tracks on Forza. Maybe it's just a way that they're sort of doing it now to get the product out there and get some revenue back to develop the additional sort of content to, fill it up as people would like, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right in some aspects there, Graham, because, they have got a roadmap for when they're releasing more tracks and cars and stuff like that.
It's an idea. Instead of a roadmap, can you just say we're putting out a game?
Oh, I'd love that, mate.
We're putting it, because obviously thinking back, obviously it came out earlier this year, but you had like Resident Evil 4, the remake of Resident Evil 4. So it's like they stripped out all of the bonus features that was in the original game. So Mercenaries was gone, the Ada add-on thing or whatever was missing as well, and then they slowly drip-fed them back to you as like free updates, and then they charged you for the Ada story, which was an unlockable in the original game, which is, I'm not even going to get into that shit, but it's an annoying practice now.
Oh yeah, I think so. And
a lot of these companies have, and I think it is the fact of like when these games come out, it's like, oh, if we hit this window, we'll hit our financial quarter and all this other shite. Rather than obviously just taking your time and putting out the full game. And to be honest, I can understand if your game was like a multiplayer game that you'd kind of maybe want to drip feed content to people to keep people entertained and like playing the game, so the population online is good. But a lot of these games that are having this now are like single-player games.
Yeah.
That have got no reason to try and retain the player base whatsoever, because single-player games are meant to be played, completed, and then you move on to something else.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that when that game, when the Gran Turismo game came out on the PS4, I saw a lot of people online on Twitter and places such as that just sort of going, well, Gran Turismo's crap because it's only got 12 tracks and Forza's got 30, so there, and it's like
there was a time when like a lot of people moved to sort of Forza from Gran Turismo.
Yeah,
because it either got stale or, like you say, it kind of launched a bit or came out a bit half baked or something.
A bit lean on the content front, really. But I think that seems to be the way that they are developing a lot of games now, and it's I know it's annoying, and they did it with dare we mention Street Fighter 5 when it came out. That was literally half a game, and it took about 3 years for that to become what I think somebody hoped it was going to be from day one, and that's not really the best sort of value proposition if you're a gamer, really, is it?
No,
and even the final product was still like the worst Street Fighter game we've had since the fucking original.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing with Forza is, there's a couple of things in my mind about it. One, I'm a little bit shocked because obviously it's been in development for over 5 years, apparently, right?
Yeah.
So I'd be expecting a lot more. But I am someone who really likes Game Pass. Don't get me wrong, but I have felt that since Game Pass has been around and they've been putting these big games on Game Pass, the quality has gone down. Because I think they have that mentality, well, it's going on to Game Pass anyway, they're not paying 50, 60 quid for it. We'll just ship it like this, even though it's not super
Even
great.
if that isn't the case, it is kind of still not a good look and the first thing people jump to with those games.
Yeah.
No,
definitely.
I'd agree. Yeah, there is a little bit of an undermining of the quality with things like Game Pass. I really do feel that.
Well, you look at Redfall as a prime example. Yeah, fucking
I'll
hell.
talk about that a bit later on, actually.
Yeah, well, it's in the news section. Yeah, I know I sound like I'm being a real negative Nancy on Forza, but I will stress it is still a fun game as what you have at the minute, but it's just not at that quality that I expected. To listen to the rest of this week's awesome episode, you need to subscribe to the Patreon. So head on over to patreon.com/360gamercast. There, from as little as £5 a month, you get a full episode every single week of the year and access to our full back catalogue of podcasts. And there's been some really good specials on there, including our Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation and Xbox series of episodes talking about the old retro systems and games. So again, head on over to patreon.com/360gamercast.